First and foremost, as mentioned, Director of Athletics Diana Sabau joining us here on the Full Court Press. Diana, thanks for spending some time with us today.
You make sure. Hold on, let's try that again. I think we couldn't hear you. Oh, now you're on. Okay.
Can you hear me now? Well, I just said thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, sorry, but I'm trying to run the board here. I'm not doing very good. Eric's
all good.
trying to help me out.
We got it.
Yeah, definitely glad we could have you on. And obviously, right now, very interesting time in Utah State athletics history. Right now, I know there's a lot of questions that people have had. I know you've been taking the media tour. You've been on, down in Salt Lake speaking to the media. So we're glad you could come up here trying to help us answer some of the questions. We have a lot. Our listeners have a lot of questions. So we're hopeful that you can answer. We don't want to come on here and just grill you like it's 60 Minutes, but there are definitely a lot of questions that people have. We want to try and get through them all.
Well, you guys are driving, so let's go.
All righty.
Well, let's just start out with the investigation, the elephant in the room. And how did you let me just ask this. Who initiated the investigation that ultimately cost 4 people their jobs?
Sure. I'll start with the events in April of 2023 that led to the commissioning of this investigation by an external independent law firm. In July of 2023, it was initiated by the leadership of USU. I was not an employee at that time, and I was not a member of the staff until August of 2022, or 23, excuse me.
So when you say initiated by the administration of Utah State, like who was that? The Board of Trustees? Was it the university president?
It was the leadership of Utah State.
Okay, so you can't give us anyone. I know Noelle Cockett was on the way out. Was this something that she initiated before she left office?
I'm sure you guys can understand, since I wasn't here and I was not a part of the Utah State staff at that time. I was not a part of that decision-making process, nor a part of the interviews as they started.
Right, I understand that. I'm just trying to just make sure we all are on the same page as far as understanding like how it started. And I would imagine, since your role after being hired after this was initiated, that you. Or when did you become aware that this was even going on?
Yeah, I did not become aware of this independent investigation until I was on campus after I was hired. So I was not made aware of the investigation during my interview process, and it wasn't until I was on campus until I was told about this investigation. When I was told about the investigation, I was simply told that the institution had hired a private firm to investigate crimes of sexual violence in violation of Utah State policy and procedures. I was not a part of the investigation. I was not told who was investigated, nor was I told of the timeline of the investigation. I inherited this, and with my leadership, investing in the leadership of our institution, I am committed to our findings, the findings of this investigation, and we will move forward with these employment actions.
So, I guess, how soon after, so obviously you talk about, not necessarily having a role in the investigation. Obviously it's done externally, so you weren't part of that necessarily. I guess, so when did you get the results of the investigation? When were you sent those, and when did you start the decision-making process? I guess talk about who made the decision in particular, but how soon did you know after the investigation was done, or how soon did you get those results once the investigation was done?
I just want to be clear with you guys so that everyone can understand that I was not a part of this investigation. I did not commission this investigation, and this investigation and the commissioning of the investigation started before I was hired at Utah State.
Yeah,
right. We understand that.
Yeah, and I don't want to grill you on that. I just want to know. I kind of want to move on to after the investigation and the process.
So the findings were presented to Utah State University administration in June. I'm sure you guys are aware that the Department of Justice has been an integral establishment at Utah State since 2020 because of crimes within our football program. And because of that, when the findings were presented to university leadership and the Board of Trustees, actions had to be taken. I know change is hard, and sometimes good people make bad decisions. But as a community, as an institution, we could not move forward without endorsing these findings and moving forward with employment actions.
Well, from statements that Jerry Bovee has made, it appears that the investigation was not definitive that he should be fired or let go. We don't know about Amy Crosbie. The university has still not even issued a statement that she was let go. So it seemed more definitive about Blake, but I guess that's what we're trying to figure out is the definitive nature for the other people who got let go. That seems to be, I guess, at odds.
There's nothing at odds, and we firmly stand behind our decisions. But with respect to the university process and these individuals that are involved, because these are ongoing employment actions, those findings will be released at the appropriate time, and anyone could obtain those through a records request.
Okay. So I guess maybe we can answer this in respect to Jerry and Bovee and Amy Crosbie. I guess, did the investigation specifically recommend letting Blake Anderson go, or was that a decision that, and I guess I'll kind of ask this, like, along with this, like, who ultimately made the decision? Like, was it you in concert with Elizabeth Cantwell? So, like, kind of who made the decision, and was it based off a recommendation of the investigation, the DOJ, or was that something you guys ultimately decided to do kind of independently with the context of the investigation results, and you guys decided to take that and fire those 4 employees?
Yeah, I know that it's probably complex to break down, but with the findings of this investigation, the university administration, President Cantwell, myself, and the Board of Trustees made the decision to move forward with employment actions.
Gotcha.
I can also share with you that the Department of Justice has extended its relationship with Utah State for an additional year because of these findings, because of their concern for the culture and the lack of compliance with reporting and policies within USU.
And so with that, I mean, there appears to be confusion among these people affected based on policies that they were trained on that were available to them in 2023, but new policies that have been changed or updated since then that seem to be these decisions have been applied based on the current policies, not necessarily on what was known to them at the time. Can you speak on that?
Our policies on reporting are very clear. We continue to stand by our policies. I can't speak for why there would be confusion when our policies are clear.
I guess.
And everyone yearly has to, as a USU employee, has to participate in training. It is a requirement within our university. We have reviews and enforcement, and we want to make sure that everyone is current in their training. So I can't really speak to handbooks and policies that existed before I arrived on campus, but I can tell you there should be no confusion in the reporting policies at USU.
Did it come to a surprise to you, just your relationship with Jerry Bovee and Amy Crosbie, two people who have been in administration for a long time, that according to this report and your decision and Elizabeth Cantwell's decision, that they didn't follow these procedures?
We absolutely stand by the findings of this investigation. Sometimes good people make bad decisions, and, to imply or suggest that maybe this investigation had an agenda is false and can really be proven by the timeline of the investigation by this external firm.
Normally, and we've seen that with the policy that Utah State has, and when an employee decision is made after an investigation like this, those employees impacted have an opportunity to respond. It doesn't appear that these employees had that opportunity. Can you speak to that?
They do have an opportunity through the university system and the grievance process with the university.
So I want to ask, regarding discipline, obviously the ultimate decision was to fire these employees. Was there any consideration of other methods of discipline, or was pretty much the only decision that was ultimately considered was firing the employees?
I can't speak to HR and personnel matters because of the current employment system and the process that is being afforded to these individuals involved. I want to make sure that they have a fair and respectful process. But I do think it is really important for everyone to understand that we need transparency and we need accountability in our reporting at Utah State. There has been a culture since 2020, when the Department of Justice became involved with Utah State, with concerns within athletics because of this culture. So to get the results of this independent investigation and to not take action would cause additional concerns from the Department of Justice, and quite frankly, is not good leadership, in my opinion.
In the initial announcement that came out earlier this month, it was focusing on this incident that happened in April and the subsequent reporting or inaccuracy in how the reporting was handled. But then 14 days later, after Blake Anderson had opportunity to appeal the decision, when the university announced it was still going through and confirming its original decision, in your release, it not only stated the reasons were still there for firing Blake Anderson based on these issues regarding that incident, but then also added information about academics in relation to the football program. Why wasn't the initial issue of academics with football part of the initial announcement that Blake Anderson was going to be let go?
The employment actions with Blake Anderson are all public record, and I would encourage you to ask for a grandma request to receive those, because those concerns were addressed in communications with our former head coach.
Yeah, we did, and I have those records. I actually have them in front of me. I guess because obviously you mentioned it in the initial termination letter. It was just
right.
that initial. It was mentioned in the first termination letter you sent to Anderson, but the initial release to the public only mentioned the allegations of sexual misconduct. We're just wondering, because academics, that is a concern. We want to talk about that, but it wasn't mentioned in the initial public release. I was just curious why that wasn't brought up there.
It was mentioned in our communications with the individual that the employment actions took place with, and we want to be respectful to these people.
So I want to ask a couple details about the academic issues, potentially and you mentioned in some of these communications that we've gotten through grammar requests about potential consequences. Like, what was Utah State facing in terms of potential consequences of academics that was concerning?
Utah State received a letter from the NCAA this spring, which stated that our APR was below the acceptable average that would put us in jeopardy to participate in a postseason play for the season of 2025. So we are currently in this category where the postseason for 2025, based on our current academic APR standards, is in question because we have taken such a dip in that APR.
And that's not a foregone conclusion. That's something that can be improved, but obviously steps have to be taken.
Correct.
In one detail, and I've tried to look this up, and maybe you can help me out, because I know people have mentioned the impact of transfers on the APR, and I've seen some information saying it doesn't impact it a whole lot. Some people are saying it does impact it a whole lot. I just want to, and it's something that Blake Anderson has brought up, that transfers have impacted the APR, and I just want to ask you about how much of an impact transfers can have on the negative APR, and if that impacted your guys' discussion with Blake Anderson about the team's APR.
That's, of course, conversations that a coach and an athletics director have with our academic staff and our compliance staff as well. We are always talking about what our future forecast looks like from an APR standard, and how we can improve it, and what the impact of the transfer portal is for that. Right now we're so excited to talk about next fall, to talk about a football program that has only had one individual jump into the transfer portal, and a locker room who believes, why not us, why not USU, a contagious energy within this team, even after suffering a very tragic loss this past weekend with the untimely passing of Andre Selden. And this is a team that has something to prove right now, and they're ready to get after it.
Again, we're talking to Director of Athletics for Utah State University, Diana Sabau. And how has all of this affected the news of Blake Anderson, Jerry Bovee, Amy Crosbie, Austin Albrecht. How has that affected the fan base? We're hearing on our show, people are not renewing their season tickets. I'm aware of a car dealership who provides vehicles to athletic department staff who have asked for their vehicles back. Donors asking for their pledges for donations to be put on hold. How has this affected the financial aspect of the athletic department?
Well, actually, we're really proud and really thankful for our fans. We have sold more season tickets this year, dating back to records of 2018. So we are not seeing fans asking for refunds or not purchasing their football season tickets. There's a lot of excitement in Logan. Our fan base, our donors, our investors, they've been really supportive, really tremendous. Yes, I want to thank Ben Murdoch and his dealership for all the support that they have given to USU Athletics and our coaches with dealer cars. And he did make the decision to pull back on his dealer cars. That's his decision. We appreciate all his support, and we hope that at some point he wants to re-engage with our athletics department, because it's really about our student athletes. It's about how we're creating the most successful impact for our student athletes, the resources that we can provide them, and what we can do to help them both academically and competitively.
So obviously a lot of fans are still supporting the university through all this. Obviously there are some who have expressed their disappointment, mostly because they know Jerry Bovee, they know Amy Crosbie and Blake Anderson. I guess what do you want to say to those fans who are disappointed in these departures, just about this situation? What would you have to say to those individuals?
I realize that change is very hard, and this is not something that anyone made as a quick decision. It was on careful review of this independent investigation and the findings that we stand behind. Policies and procedures have to be followed. We have to be accountable. We have had a culture of sexual violence for too long. The Department of Justice is not leaving our campus because of this. We have to change this culture, and we have to do what's right. And sometimes really good people don't make great decisions or don't make good decisions, and that's unfortunate. And I realize that the community, Logan is very proud of Aggies, of our Aggie tradition, and you're not an Aggie fan by accident. It's part of your blood, and we're thankful for that. And I'm really appreciative to the community and all the kindness that it has shown me and my family. And so we realize this is hard. We appreciate your support. We look forward to continuing to shine brightly in the Valley and produce student athletes that achieve a lot academically and successfully on the field and in the classroom. And we appreciate their thoughts and their opinions, but we promise you the future is bright. We'll be accountable. We'll create safe spaces on campus so that Utah State can turn the corner from this culture of sexual violence.
I think another question is, when first it was 3 people and then it became 4, which we just happened to find out and asked for confirmation with Amy Crosbie. But will there be more? Are there other people who could be let go as a result of this investigation?
I talk to our staff and our coaches and our administration and our support staff all the time. If you do your job, if you own your job, if you're good at your job, if you create impact for our student athletes, if you follow policies and procedures, and you're in accordance with Utah State, federal, state regulations, you have nothing to worry about. And we have a really long runway for success. We look forward to bringing in new Aggies and elevating people that are already within our department that show potential and a skill set to achieve more. So our future is really bright, and we're really excited, guys.
And once again, I want to thank you for coming on. I have one more question I want to ask because we've got to wrap this up. Just about the future. Obviously, you've got some positions to fill in the near future. What's the plan for working through that, especially with head coach? I know Nate Drowling's going to be the interim. What's kind of the plan right now for potentially filling these positions within the athletic department?
Well, we just announced some additional football staff for Nate so that his team can be complete from a coaching and teaching perspective, that we can connect the chains so that we give everyone the largest runway for success with our football program. Nate and his coaching staff knows what we need to accomplish. Of course, it's about winning, but it's about progress. It's about our football student athletes being good citizens in our community and achieving success in the classroom. And then for our department staff, we are going to elevate those who deserve to be elevated, and we're going to look at the opportunities to bring in talent, whether it's from Logan or from the nation, to keep making Utah State rise within the Mountain West Conference.
And then last question from me, and I think you've addressed some of this already, but I know, certainly you're going out there, and we appreciate you making yourself available to share your side of the story. But I think you can appreciate that it's a challenge for some in this community to have trust with what some of these decisions that were made and what the future might look like with administration at Utah State Athletics. So what can be done there to restore that trust?
I deeply understand that, and I realize that trust is earned. But I need the community to understand that we are making really hard choices so that Utah State is safer, that we are in compliance with national, state, and federal and Utah State regulations and policies, and that we are creating a safe and healthy environment for our student athletes, our students on campus, and our communities. We believe in the findings of this investigation, and we firmly support our employment actions.
All right. Once again, Diana Sabau, Athletics Director for Utah State, thank you so much for taking some time, especially since we ran a few minutes over. Very glad we could have you on the Full Court Press.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
All right. Have a good one. All right. We're going to go to break, and we'll be back after this here on the Full Court Press.